Continuing from my last My Journey Part 6 video, after leaving Tulsona, I arrived in Glen Allen, which is 12 miles away. With a population of around 450 people, Glen Allen is one of the larger communities in this area. It has a trading post, a thrift shop, and a grocery store, as well as a couple of other small places to stop at. Something I learned while driving through remote communities in Alaska, other than don't break down in the winter or you'll most likely die, was if you ever feel like having fast food, Subway's got your back. I saw 2 Subways while in remote towns, including one in Glen Allen. And before you ask, no, they don't have moose and cheese subs. Glen Allen lies along the Glen Highway at its junction with the Richardson Highway, and it serves as an important hub due to its location of this part of the interior of Alaska. It's about 200 miles from Anchorage and is also known as the gateway to Wrangell St. Elias National Park, which it borders and which is the largest national park in the United States. The people in Glen Allen were extremely friendly, whether you went to the grocery store or thrift shop or anywhere else. From there I drove on to Taslina with a population of 244. The native village of Taslina is a federally recognized tribe in the community, as this is where the Athabascan natives have lived for hundreds of years. I didn't think this area was as nice as the communities that came before Glen Allen, but being only 7 miles from Glen Allen makes Taslina a fairly convenient place to live. After Taslina, I stopped at Copper Center. Copper Center was a heavily wooded area with a population of just under 350. Anyone who decides to settle down in Copper Center definitely has their privacy and peace deep in the woods. Minutes after Copper Center is Willow Creek, which I really took a liking to. Just like Copper Center, it is a heavily wooded area with a lot of privacy and around 200 residents. It's difficult to go into details in this area because other than a small community surrounded by thousands of acres of forest, there's not a lot here. Most of the people who live in the communities before and after Glen Allen drive to Glen Allen to get what they need, and similar to places like Healy and Nelchina, the winters here are more extreme than many people may want. I enjoyed Willow Creek a lot, and this is one of my top 5 favorite communities in Alaska. The last small community in this area before reaching the famous Thompson Pass is Tonsina. Tonsina has around 55 residents. I left Tonsina to begin the last stretch of my road trip. I was not going to see another store, gas station, or community until I reached my new home for the winter. After driving 34 minutes, I reached the Chugach Mountains. I then continued another 25 minutes through these mountains before reaching the Thompson Pass. Thompson Pass is known as one of the most beautiful drives in Alaska. Whether it's the Blue Lakes or the Chugach Mountains or the dozens of waterfalls you pass by, I would have to agree. The Thompson Pass is a 2,600-foot high gap in the Chugach Mountains. It's known as the snowiest place in Alaska, receiving over 800 inches of snow per year. Driving over the Thompson Pass takes nearly 1 hour, and because it has so much to offer, Give yourself 3 to 4 hours if you ever come this way. There were countless pull-offs next to gorgeous waterfalls streaming down from the mountains. It's not uncommon to see a few cars stop next to the waterfalls, filling up thermoses with the fresh falling water. And then you had the giant moose statue, and then Blueberry Lake, which would be a perfect place for a picnic. Other places to stop at were the Worthington Glacier, Berry Trail, as well as dozens of pull-offs at the top of hiking trails. Driving out of Thompson Pass was disappointing because it's a long stretch of road that's hard to get too much of. But I only had 2 days left to find a place to stay this winter in the town at the end of Thompson Pass, in a town called Valdez. Valdez is at the end of the road system, almost 2 hours from the nearest community. It's as remote a town can be in Alaska that you can drive to, with only one way in and one way out, which is the Thompson Pass. As I arrived in Valdez, I was welcomed by a huge sign with the town name that you drive under. It reminded me of a ride at an amusement park. Valdez only has a few roads in town, and I drove down most of them when I arrived. It's also the snowiest city in the US and averages around 350 inches of snow per year. My first winter here, we got 361 inches. Snow was the only reason I came to Valdez. It was my desire to live my first winter in Alaska in the snowiest city in the US, and Valdez didn't let me down. After a short drive through town, I stopped at the Old Town Diner and grabbed a hamburger and asked the waitress if she knew any place in town that's for rent. She went in the kitchen and brought out the owner, who pointed opposite the diner and told me, "Try that motel." Was it really going to be this easy? After I finished my dinner, I jumped in my car and drove over to the motel, and in 5 minutes I had my first home in Alaska. Okay, it was more of a room than a home, but for me, it was my first home in Alaska. In my first My Journey video, part 1, I asked, how did I come to be living in a motel? This is my story.